Do you feel the weight of constantly trying to meet someone else's expectations, the pressure to prove your worth to people who might not even see your value? It's like sprinting on a treadmill, exhausted and out of breath, yet stuck in the same place. That's because true validation can't come from outside, it has to come from within. This endless cycle of seeking approval drains your energy and holds you back. Welcome to Motivation for Success. Today, we're diving into a direct challenge. Your sense of worth cannot be handed to you by someone else, no matter how close, influential, or important that person may be in your life. Denzel Washington, celebrated for his candid talks and reflective writing, has a core message that resonates throughout his speeches and published insights: no one can bestow worth upon you, you must claim it for yourself. This statement serves as a wake-up call, pushing you to consider how often you outsource your sense of self-respect. If you've been stuck in relationships, personal or professional, where you continually sacrifice your needs, your voice, and your own standards to keep others happy, you're likely neglecting a fundamental truth: you are the only one who has the authority to define your worth. The aim here isn't merely to make you feel good for a moment, it's to spark a long-lasting revolution in how you view yourself. Maybe you felt invisible in your social circle or undervalued at work. Maybe you've swallowed your opinions because you're afraid of creating tension. Or maybe you're so used to being the nice one, you can't remember the last time you did something just because it made you happy. The ultimate cost of this way of living is steep: resentment, self-doubt, and a nagging sense that you're betraying your true self. Stick around, because we're about to explore 5 major reasons why self-respect can never come from the outside. Each reason digs into a common pitfall, like chasing ever-changing praise, or bending your identity to earn someone else's acceptance, and shows how these traps keep you from the genuine sense of self-worth you crave. Throughout this journey, let today be the day you stop letting others decide if you're good enough and start realizing you've had that power all along. I'm talking directly to you because this message is personal. If you've been craving respect, real respect that doesn't vanish as soon as you make a mistake or voice a different opinion, you're in the right place. Let this video spark conversations in the comments. Share the struggles you've faced, the times you tried to please someone who still ended up walking away or disrespecting you. By voicing your experiences, you'll see you're not alone, and you'll fuel a collective shift toward healthier, more authentic lives. This is your catalyst. If you're ready to break old patterns and reclaim your power, then keep watching. By the end, you'll have a clearer perspective on why looking outward for validation is a losing game, and how claiming your worth from within can transform every part of your life. Let's jump into these 5 powerful reasons that affirm you are the gatekeeper of your own respect. Have you ever ridden the emotional roller coaster of someone's approval, eagerly clinging to that brief moment when they say something nice about you, only to feel a jarring drop into anxiety and self-doubt the minute they stop paying attention? That sensation of soaring high on compliments and then plummeting when those compliments fade is far more common than most people admit. You might experience a warm rush when a coworker praises your job performance or when a friend gushes about how great you look in a new outfit. In that instant, you think, "I matter," and your mood soars. But what happens the next day, when that same person is too busy or distracted to notice you, or worse, when they critique something you did? If your sense of self-worth depends on those fleeting affirmations, you'll find yourself bouncing between momentary bliss and crushing insecurity, never sure when the next low will hit. Denzel Washington, through a third-person perspective, underscores how external praise is tied to variables you can't control, like someone else's emotional state, personal biases, or even incomplete information about who you are. One day, they might shower you with compliments simply because they're in a great mood or everything in their own life is running smoothly. The next day, they're dealing with stress, exhaustion, or personal conflicts and barely have the bandwidth to acknowledge you. If your self-esteem hinges on their attention, you're essentially volunteering to be at the mercy of their shifting moods. Picture waking up every morning uncertain whether you'll be admired or ignored, constantly scanning for signals that you're still worthy. That's a deeply unsettling way to live, because you never get to rest in a stable sense of self. In contrast, imagine how liberating it would be to trust in your own value, so much so that even if you go through an entire day without a single compliment, you still carry an unwavering conviction that you matter. That steadiness and peace is what we all crave deep down, yet so many of us settle for a dependence on praise that can evaporate at any moment. This dependency on external validation also exacts a heavy emotional toll. When you continuously seek approval, you're on constant alert, trying to read others' cues and adjusting your behavior to fit what you believe they expect of you. Over time, the stress of scanning for acceptance, or the fear of losing it, can erode your well-being. You might even lose your sense of identity, forgetting your own preferences, opinions, and personality traits, because you've devoted so much mental space to predicting or fulfilling someone else's desires. Ask yourself if you've fallen into this pattern in areas like your career, friendships, romantic relationships, or even social media use. Do you rush to post every achievement online, not just to share good news but in the hope that likes and comments will confirm you're on the right track? Do you bite your tongue in group discussions because you're too scared your real thoughts might turn people off? Each time you silence yourself or perform a persona for the sake of validation, you stray a little further from who you really are. Breaking free from this cycle doesn't mean you reject compliments outright or pretend you don't enjoy praise. Everyone appreciates kind words, it's part of healthy social interaction. The difference lies in enjoying compliments without requiring them to feel whole. You can still say, "Thank you," and feel genuinely grateful when someone notices your efforts or admires your style. However, you also want to cultivate a baseline of self-worth that isn't toppled by a passing criticism or someone's fleeting indifference. Think of external praise like icing on a cake. It sweetens the experience, but the cake itself, your self-esteem, should be solid and tasty on its own. If the only way your cake is edible is by slathering on layers of icing, constant approval, then the moment that icing is stripped away, you've got nothing left to sustain you. To develop this internal grounding, start by observing the mental rush you experience when someone compliments you. Don't judge yourself for enjoying it, but notice how quickly you might start seeking another dose. Next, pay attention to the crash that comes when the praise stops or when criticism appears. During those times, ask yourself, is my sense of value really so fragile that one person's fluctuating attention can dismantle it? Explore practices that help you anchor your identity, journaling to remind yourself of your strengths, affirmations that reinforce your intrinsic worth, or hobbies pursued for personal fulfillment rather than likes or accolades. Over time, these efforts rewire your brain to rely less on unpredictable external cues and more on your own convictions about what you bring to the world. When you reach that level of inner stability, the entire dynamic of your interactions changes. Compliments become welcome additions instead of lifelines. Criticism evolves into constructive feedback or, if it's unfair, something you can calmly dismiss without letting it unravel your confidence. You engage with people from a place of security rather than desperation, which ironically makes you more magnetic and more likely to attract healthier relationships. Others sense that you don't need them to complete you, instead, you genuinely enjoy their company. Denzel Washington's viewpoint is clear: as soon as you hand someone else the power to make or break your day, you've entered a territory of dependency, not respect. True respect, both from others and from yourself, arises when you own your inherent worth and refuse to let it be dictated by fluctuating external factors. So take a moment to reflect on your life. Identify where you might be handing others too much influence over how you feel about yourself. Are you always waiting for someone's nod of approval before you celebrate an achievement? Do you feel uneasy when no one comments on a photo or a post you shared on social media? These reactions don't make you a bad person, they simply highlight areas where your self-esteem might rely on external reinforcements. By understanding this, you give yourself the chance to change. The real work begins with small, intentional steps, choosing to believe in your abilities even when no one else applauds, daring to voice your opinions even when they might clash with the crowd, and creating a personal sense of pride that can't be erased by someone else's bad mood. The journey can feel unsettling at first, especially if you've spent years chasing that roller coaster of approval, but the payoff is immeasurable. You develop a quiet, enduring confidence that isn't undone by a lack of compliments or unsettled by passing criticisms. You learn to stand in your truth, to appreciate sincere affirmation without depending on it, and to wake up each morning with the assurance that you matter, compliments or not. That's the essence of living from a place of inner worth rather than external dependence, and it's the path that leads to genuine peace and lasting self-respect. It's often unsettling to realize that someone in your life regularly belittles you, dismisses your perspective, or disregards your boundaries. You might question what you did to prompt their behavior or why they fail to recognize the damage they're causing. In many instances, the problem arises not from anything you've overtly done, but rather from what you haven't done. By never firmly stating your limits, you may be unintentionally signaling that their actions are permissible. Denzel Washington, speaking from a third-person perspective, underscores that self-respect originates in the standards you set for yourself. If you routinely let people cross emotional, mental, or even physical lines, you're effectively communicating that those lines don't hold much importance. Over time, individuals around you absorb your silent compliance and interpret it as consent to continue whatever they've been doing. Yet the dynamic can shift radically the moment you draw a boundary and assert, "This is not okay," forcing them to reassess the way they interact with you. Embracing this level of self-assertion can feel daunting if you've historically been the person who overextends, stays quiet in the face of condescension, or consistently prioritizes the comfort of others above your own well-being. There's a clear difference between being kind and becoming a doormat, and this is where many people struggle. They worry that speaking up will make them appear rude or self-centered. In reality, clarifying boundaries isn't about becoming abrasive, it's about recognizing that your time and emotional resources are finite and deserve protection. People who have grown used to benefiting from your boundless patience may react with surprise or even resentment when you finally tell them you're not available for their every whim. They might label you as hostile, self-absorbed, or unrecognizable compared to who they thought you were. Yet holding firm to your worth is neither antagonistic nor selfish, it's a vital act of self-care, especially when you're striving to break a pattern of feeling taken for granted. To spark real change, start by pinpointing situations in which you routinely feel undervalued. Maybe it's the friend who only texts when they want a favor, the coworker who piles extra work on your desk because you never say no, or the relative who expects you to always pick up the bill at family gatherings. Each instance where you repress that small voice inside telling you something is off contributes to an unwritten rule that you'll put up with this. However, once you calmly yet confidently articulate your limits, whether by stating how you prefer to be addressed, or by declining an obligation you can't manage, you begin dismantling those old unspoken rules. This shift may bring discomfort at first, especially if you're not used to valuing your own needs on par with everyone else's. But every time you decide to honor your sense of self and enforce a reasonable boundary, you re-educate those around you on how you deserve to be treated. Consistency in this process is crucial. If you make a firm stand once, only to cave the next time someone questions your boundary, you weaken your message and demonstrate that you might not really mean what you say. But when you consistently practice self-respect, you're likely to see a gradual reorganization of your social world. Individuals who genuinely care about you will adapt because they see your well-being as important, while those who resist respecting your limits are effectively revealing that they had little regard for you in the first place. Although it can be painful to discover who falls into that latter category, it's far more beneficial to recognize it now than to carry on tolerating the kind of behavior that drains your energy and undermines your self-esteem. Ultimately, the goal of asserting your boundaries isn't to punish or belittle others, it's about affirming that your well-being, emotions, and time matter. By treating yourself with dignity, you foster an environment that naturally encourages others to do the same. This creates a healthier, more equitable dynamic where respect flows both ways rather than being demanded or coerced. Over time, this foundation of mutual respect paves the way for richer connections, as people in your circle begin to appreciate your clarity and treat you with genuine consideration. The resulting relationships feel far more nourishing because they're not built on the unspoken expectation that you'll always yield. Instead, they're founded on the understanding that each person's needs, thoughts, and boundaries are valid and worthy of acknowledgement. As you progress along this journey, remember that enforcing boundaries can make you temporarily uncomfortable, but that discomfort often signals meaningful growth. When you learn to say no to requests that conflict with your capacity or values, you start freeing up the time and emotional energy to invest in pursuits that bring you joy. You also offer others the opportunity to step up, become more independent, and respect the lines you've drawn. In many cases, people who value you will come to appreciate your honesty, even if it challenges their initial expectations. And if they don't, that recognition allows you to distance yourself from unhealthy patterns, whether in friendships, work relationships, or family dynamics. Above all, keep in mind that standing up for yourself is a powerful declaration that you refuse to be diminished. Denzel Washington's view highlights how self-respect is the cornerstone of authentic, balanced relationships. When you respect yourself enough to enforce boundaries, you give others a roadmap for how to interact with you in a way that safeguards everyone's dignity. This is not an overnight transformation, but every small decision to stick to your boundaries contributes to a larger narrative of self-worth. Perhaps the best news is that once you experience the rewards of this shift, greater peace, more genuine interactions, and the release of unspoken resentment, you'll likely find it easier to remain consistent. The inner harmony that arises from living in alignment with your own standards is irreplaceable, and it affirms that you have every right to define the terms on which you engage with the world. Picture juggling balls in the air, each ball representing a different persona you adopt to keep everyone happy. It's possible to maintain that show for a while, but eventually, one of those balls drops. You slip up, say the wrong thing, or reveal a hidden preference, and suddenly you're exposed. The stress of this tightrope act can be suffocating. More importantly, it's impossible to develop genuine self-respect if you're constantly living behind masks. Denzel Washington, through a third-person lens, frequently advocates for authenticity. He reminds us that being real, even if it means ruffling a few feathers, is infinitely more fulfilling than blending into a mold that was never meant for you. When you're honest with yourself about what you like, what you believe, and what you value, you gain a sense of integrity that can't be replicated through pretenses. Yet our world often rewards conformity. You might land a job by pretending you're more extroverted than you are, or keep a relationship by feigning enthusiasm for activities you secretly dislike. But each little compromise chips away at your sense of identity. Over time, you might forget your genuine preferences. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, "I'm not even sure what I really enjoy anymore"? That's a telltale sign that you've molded yourself to others' expectations for too long. Pretending to be someone else also fuels anxiety. You become hypervigilant, worried that someone will notice the cracks in your facade. You might find yourself lying to maintain the illusions you've created. This is the breeding ground for shame and guilt, emotions that corrode self-esteem. You end up feeling isolated, even if you're surrounded by people, because nobody knows the real you, and it's your own doing. Breaking free involves risk. Some relationships may not survive the unveiling of your true self. But consider this: do you want bonds built on a false image or ones based on genuine understanding and respect? The reward for authenticity is that the people who remain in your life will love and admire you for who you truly are, not for the sanitized version you were projecting. To start, pick one area where you feel you've been faking it to fit in or to impress. Maybe you pretend to have certain political views around certain friends. Maybe you claim to enjoy a hobby that actually bores you. Commit to revealing your real thoughts or feelings next time the subject arises. Watch the reaction. It might cause a stir, or it might not. Either way, you'll feel a surge of relief at not having to maintain that particular front anymore. Over time, you can peel back more layers, moving steadily toward a life that aligns with your true identity. Authenticity isn't about being loud or confrontational, it's about being consistent. It's showing up in each situation as yourself. When your words, actions, and values line up, you create internal harmony. You move through life with a sense of honesty and ease that no performance can provide. Plus, the respect that flows your way is anchored in truth. It's the difference between someone admiring you for a role you play versus someone appreciating you for who you genuinely are. If you've ever said yes to a friend's request when your schedule was already bursting at the seams, or if you've ever tolerated a toxic work environment far longer than you should have, you know firsthand how ignoring your limits can take a toll on your health. This goes beyond mental stress. Exhaustion, headaches, insomnia, and even more severe conditions can arise from chronic emotional strain. Self-respect acts like a shield, protecting you from the draining scenarios that occur when you can't say no or enforce boundaries. Denzel Washington, speaking through a broader lens, highlights that your body and mind are tightly connected. When you fail to respect your own needs, whether that means rest, solitude, or space from unhealthy people, your physical health often suffers. Stress hormones skyrocket, your immune system can weaken, and you might resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms like overeating, alcohol, or isolation. Is it worth sacrificing your well-being to maintain someone else's approval? If that question stings, that's a good indicator you need to reassess. Imagine what it would feel like to live a life where your emotional and physical health aren't afterthoughts. How much more energy would you have if you didn't constantly carry guilt or fear about disappointing others? In practical terms, this can look like scheduling downtime on your calendar and refusing to let anyone encroach on that space. It can look like turning off your phone when you need a mental break, or leaving a situation when the environment becomes hostile. It can involve standing up for yourself when someone's tone crosses the line from friendly banter to disrespect. Of course, these actions might seem uncomfortable if you've lived primarily to please others. People might question why you've changed. They might accuse you of being less cooperative or less nice. But remember, there's a difference between being kind and being a doormat. Kindness considers your own well-being as well as others. A doormat approach dismisses your own well-being entirely, and that's where resentment and burnout find fertile ground. If you struggle with guilt when you try to prioritize your well-being, write down the consequences of not doing so. Note the sleepless nights, the drained mornings, the anxious afternoons. Sometimes seeing the impact of neglecting your boundaries in black and white can jolt you awake. Also, remember that you're not a machine built to run on overdrive without maintenance. Prioritizing self-respect ensures you're operating from a place of wholeness, which ultimately means you'll have more to give to the people and projects that genuinely matter to you. Denzel Washington's perspective reinforces this: you can't pour from an empty cup. If you're constantly drained, you'll struggle to be your best self at work, at home, or in any relationship. The paradox is that by respecting yourself more, you often become more valuable to others, because you show up with energy, clarity, and genuine willingness rather than grudging compliance. Fulfillment is a tricky concept. Many chase it through achievements like degrees, promotions, or flashy lifestyle changes, only to discover that once the novelty fades, they still feel a void. That emptiness usually exists because the pursuit wasn't grounded in what truly matters to them, it was chasing a script someone else wrote or a standard society imposed. Self-respect weaves into this picture because when you respect yourself, you honor your core values. You don't chase random trophies or accolades just to hear the crowd cheer, you pursue paths that resonate with your convictions. Denzel Washington, interpreted in third person, consistently highlights the importance of living in harmony with your authentic beliefs. He suggests that real success isn't about the external markers, it's about internal alignment, where your choices match what you profess to care about. When your actions diverge from your personal code, you create internal tension. Even if you achieve outward success, you won't feel the satisfaction you crave. Maybe you value creativity above all else, but you're stuck in a corporate job that leaves you no time or energy to paint, write, or compose. Or perhaps you believe in community service but spend your weekends binge-watching TV instead of volunteering. This disconnect might seem minor at first, but over time it erodes your sense of purpose. You start to feel restless, like something's missing. And it is, you're missing the chance to express your true self. Respecting your own values can mean making bold moves, like shifting careers, leaving relationships that clash with your fundamental principles, or dedicating time to a cause that brings you alive. These choices might be challenging. They might reduce your short-term comfort or financial stability. But the payoff in genuine fulfillment is immeasurable. When you live in alignment with your values, external validation becomes less urgent. Yes, it's nice if people applaud your choices, but you're not dependent on that applause to feel good. You know you're acting in line with your deepest convictions, and that in itself provides a sense of wholeness. The noise of other people's opinions fades into the background because your internal compass is guiding you. If you're not sure how to identify your values, start by reflecting on moments when you felt most energized or proud. Was it when you helped someone in need? Created something beautiful? Took a leadership role in a community initiative? These are hints about what lights you up from within. On the flip side, recall when you felt a profound sense of emptiness, maybe after a big purchase that didn't fix your dissatisfaction, or a job promotion that left you feeling unfulfilled. These moments show you what doesn't align with your core. Whenever you face a decision, use your values as a litmus test. Ask, does this choice bring me closer or take me further from the person I want to be? If you find yourself continuously taking actions that contradict your stated values, it's time to evaluate why. Are you scared of judgment? Are you stuck in a comfort zone? Your answers might lead you to crucial changes that, although tough, will pave the way to a more genuine life. Denzel Washington's stance is that nobody else can give you that sense of purpose. No applause, no trophy, no job title can ever replace the satisfaction of knowing you're living a life of integrity. And ironically, when you do live that life, you often attract the sort of respect and recognition that superficial chasing never could have delivered. So we've covered 5 compelling reasons why you can't rely on others to define your worth: the inconsistency of outside validation, the power you wield in teaching people how to treat you, the inner conflict created by pretending to be someone else, the role self-respect plays in protecting your emotional and physical health, and the profound fulfillment that stems from living in alignment with your values. If you're feeling a mix of emotions, maybe some excitement, possibly some discomfort, that's normal. Realizing that you hold the reins to your self-respect can be both liberating and intimidating. But this is where your journey takes on a new form. The road ahead might mean tough conversations, boundary setting, and letting go of false personas. You might face criticism or pushback. Yet every step you take towards self-respect is a step away from the chaotic hustle of people-pleasing and insecurity. And that's a trade-off worth making. Take a deep breath and reflect on everything we've discussed. Look at your life. Think about how much time you've spent measuring yourself against fickle standards and how many times you've let someone else's approval dictate your choices. It's time to put a stop to that. Denzel Washington consistently reminds us, in a third-person sense, that no one can bestow worth upon you, you must claim it for yourself. This isn't just a clever phrase, it's a call to take action in your own life. Ask yourself, how can you start making choices that reflect the deepest respect for who you are? Maybe it means declining invitations that don't align with your goals. Maybe it means speaking your mind even if you risk disagreement. Maybe it means carving out time for that one passion you've sidelined for years because you were too busy trying to keep everyone else happy. Start small if you need to, but start. Don't let fear of conflict or disapproval keep you locked in a cycle of low self-worth. Yes, it might be scary. But the alternative, continuing to dance to someone else's tune, continuing to let others define your value, is far scarier in the long run. That path ends in resentment, regret, and the painful realization that you lived your life as a supporting role in someone else's story. The path of self-respect, though initially challenging, leads to a sense of peace, empowerment, and alignment that can't be bought or faked. Share your stories in the comments. Reflect on the times you've let others push you around, or how you plan to break free from that habit. Let's create a community that encourages each other to stand firm in our convictions. When you voice your struggles and victories, you not only liberate yourself but also inspire someone else who's in the same battle. We're on this journey together, and collective growth amplifies individual progress. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to Motivation for Success, like the video, and share it with someone who needs a jolt of reality or encouragement. You never know how your small act of sharing could shift someone's entire perspective on self-worth. Remember, Denzel Washington's wisdom calls you to step into your birthright, the right to determine your own value. Don't wait for external cues or someone's permission. Seize that power now. Thank you for being part of this conversation. This isn't the end of your journey, it's just the beginning of a new chapter, one where you refuse to negotiate your worth, one where you walk through life confident in who you are. Step up. Set your boundaries. Live your values. Let this be the moment you finally decide you matter, no matter what anyone else says or does. That's the foundation of a life that's truly free, purposeful, and fulfilling. Thank you for joining us today. If this video inspired you, please hit that subscribe button, give it a like, and share it with someone who could use a reminder that self-respect comes from within. Keep challenging yourself, keep growing, and we'll see you next time on Motivation for Success. Your worth is not a negotiation, it's your birthright. Own it, and watch your entire world transform.